My name is Gabriel Hensley, 61, former military intelligence, retired early, by force more than choice. These days, I teach self-defense at a local gym, not far from Fort Liberty. It's quiet work, clean mats, broken kids, simple rules. I buried my son 20 years ago. His name was Caleb, 23. I remember the number more than his birthday. You don't forget how many years you've been a ghost. They gave me a closed casket, said his body wasn't retrievable in its full integrity. Words like that stick in your teeth. I signed the paperwork. I shook the hands. I held the flag. I went home, and I never believed a goddamn word of it. I kept his room untouched, paid the storage fees when I had to move. Every third night, I'd wake up choking on air, convinced I'd hear his boots in the hallway. Trauma therapy calls it a loop. Soldiers call it silence. Last night, I didn't sleep. It was the 20th anniversary. I lit a candle, sat alone in the kitchen with a bottle I didn't touch. At 2:11 a.m., the landline rang. It hasn't rung in years. That phone was only ever used by two people, me and Caleb. I stared at it like it was wired to explode. Unknown number, secure line. I picked up. There was static, then breathing, then, Dad. A pause. My whole chest collapsed. You raised a soldier. My knuckles whitened against the phone. I'm alive. I said nothing. Couldn't. His voice cracked once, like he was whispering through blood. I don't know where I am, but they're not who they say. The line died. I held the phone for minutes after the silence. Most fathers bury memories. I buried lies. Because they asked me to. Because I thought I owed them that. I checked the call log. No trace. Pulled up my laptop. Used an old Army trace tool I wasn't supposed to still have access to. Ran the number. No hit. But the connection route? It wasn't public. It was DHS Tier 3 encrypted, Department of Homeland Security. Someone just broke through a system that doesn't get broken. I called Walter Pike, still on base. His voice came half drunk, half panic. I told you not to dig, Gabe. I didn't dig. The dead called me. He went silent. I stared at the photo on my wall. Caleb, age 15, grinning in a dirt-streaked uniform during summer camp at Fort Meade. That same smirk echoed in the voice last night. You don't bring back the dead, unless they were never buried right. I put on my coat, slid the Glock 19 into the holster. I hadn't fired it in 6 years. Muscle memory is a bitch. So is betrayal. I drove straight to Veterans Rest Cemetery, exit 19, Fort Liberty. The gate was locked. I parked outside and climbed the iron fence. Snow half melted, leaving mud patches. Caleb's grave sat in Section C, third row from the edge. The stone read, SGT, Caleb J. Hensley, born 1982, died 2005, in valor honor. I dropped to one knee and pressed my hand to the earth. You don't need to see a ghost to know something's wrong with the grave. I felt it in my bones. That wasn't a memory. That was his voice. And it was real. The shovel hit something hard. I froze. The cemetery was dead quiet. Ironic. Cold wind scraping the trees, moonlight cracking through bare branches. My breath puffed out white in the air, my fingers stiff around the handle. One more hit. I kept digging. I'd come alone. Black jacket, gloves, flashlight clipped to my belt. Stupid. Illegal. Necessary. My son's grave wasn't supposed to be empty. 6 feet down, I hit the coffin lid. It wasn't sealed. Not properly. A thin line of dust trailed around the edges like it had been reopened. I pulled the crowbar from my pack, jammed it under the lip. One push. Another. The coffin creaked. I forced it open. Inside, not a body. Sandbags, military grade, weighted, clean. Lined up like someone gave a damn about appearances. My pulse flatlined, then roared. I staggered back, mud on my boots, cold sweat, heart-punching ribs. Someone buried a lie here. You don't bury a body you never had, I whispered. I snapped a photo. 2, 3. Shut the coffin, kicked dirt back in, fast. My hands shook. A car passed on the road beyond the trees. I ducked low, turned off my flashlight, stayed still. I waited 2 minutes, then I ran. Cut to black. Walter Pike answered on the 4th ring. Jesus, Gabe, what the hell? Where's Caleb's body, Walt? Silence. A breath. Then, you're not supposed to ask that. Then tell me this. Why the hell did I just dig up a box of goddamn sand? Click. He hung up. I didn't call back. I drove to Pike's place. Didn't ask. Didn't knock. He lived in a rental cabin half a mile from the southern fence of Fort Liberty. Lights out, curtains drawn. I parked behind the shed, knocked on the back door. Twice. He opened. Boxer shorts, tank top, pistol half raised. Jesus, Gabe, are you trying to get shot? Tell me the truth. He rubbed his eyes. You broke into a federal cemetery. You broke something bigger. He poured whiskey. 2 glasses. No ice. You remember Project Perseus? My spine straightened. Ghost unit. Intel only. Rumors. Not rumors. You signed for it. I don't sign what I don't understand. He pushed a folder across the table. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Caleb J. Hensley. Subject class. Level 4. Containment status. Reassigned authorization. GH. My initials. My signature. Bullshit, I whispered. It's black budget work. They tagged his unit for extraction. No one expected casualties. Then, things changed. What things? Command rerouted them. Caleb went radio silent. His team was pulled. Intel scrubbed. They gave you a coffin because they had to, because bodies make better headlines than disappearances. You're telling me they left him? Walter looked away. I'm telling you, they might have kept him. The whiskey burned, going down. You ever hear the phrase, to a future we can't escape? Yeah, he stared at me. This is it. I drove back home at dawn, couldn't sleep, couldn't sit. I opened Caleb's old box of things, medals, patches, a photo of us fishing. Then I saw it. An old USB, no label, taped under the metal case. I plugged it in. One folder, Requiem, encrypted, password protected. I typed in Caleb's birth date. Nothing. My own. No. Then I typed Spearfish, the name of the training mission he loved to brag about at 19. It opened. Inside, audio logs. Timestamps dated 2 years after his declared death. First log crackled, static. Then Caleb's voice. If you're hearing this, I didn't make it out. They're not who they said. Project Perseus isn't intel. It's control. They're making ghosts. Soldiers you can't trace. I'm not alone here, but I don't know how much longer we have. Then a hiss. Then silence. I backed away from the desk. Someone knocked at the front door. 3 slow taps. I hadn't told anyone I was home. The street was empty. The sky turning orange. I reached for my gun. He wasn't buried. He was erased. 3 knocks. Slow. Steady. I froze mid-step, gun drawn. Whoever was outside wasn't in a hurry. That was worse. I moved to the peephole. Empty porch. A 4th knock. This time from the back door. Adrenaline sliced through my chest. I circled the hallway, boots light on hardwood. The back window revealed a black sedan idling across the street. Headlights off, engine running. There's a kind of silence that only shows up when you're being watched. Felt like breathing inside a vacuum. I reached for the backup gun taped under the kitchen sink, just in case. Cut to black. 5 minutes later, I was driving fast. No headlights, no destination. I needed answers, not guesses, not ghost stories. Data. I made the turn toward Fort Liberty, off the service road. Headlights still dark. The facility was sleeping. 1 guard booth, 1 board officer. I had a plan. I pulled up slow, flashing an old contractor badge from my Intel days. Not legal anymore, but not erased either. Sometimes a lie isn't about what you say, just how steady your hand looks when you say it. System access check. Intel Unit 44-3, I said flatly. He squinted. That section's restricted. It's under audit, I shot back. You want to call Nolan's desk at OSI and ask why he's 2 hours late pulling this log? He hesitated. 2 seconds. 3. Then buzzed the gate open. Cut to interior. The server room was colder than I remembered, blue light humming from racks. Dust-coated cables snaked along the walls like vines in a dead forest. I moved fast, console unlocked, username guest admin, password still unchanged, amateurs. I typed, Project Perseus nothing. Then, Shadow Branch, a hit, encrypted logs, dozens, most scrubbed. 1 partial file remained, fragmented but date-stamped, March 17, 2008. 3 years after Caleb's supposed death. I opened it. The screen filled with grainy surveillance footage. Caleb, older, beard, black fatigues, standing at attention beside 5 other men in a concrete chamber with no markings, no insignias, just eyes. No sound. Just movement. Caleb turned his head sharply, like he heard something the camera didn't, then looked straight into the lens. Straight at me. The feed cut. My hands trembled, not fear. Recognition. That was him, I whispered. He's alive. Sudden noise. The hallway. I slammed the drive into my coat, pulled the gun, and killed the lights. Footsteps. Fast. Sharp. Military boots. I moved low, ducked behind a supply cabinet. Breath tight, counting shadows. 3 men. Armed. One carried a stun rifle, non-lethal. They weren't here to kill me. Not yet. They cleared the corridor, flashlights sweeping. Then one paused. Spoke low. Check the logs. Make sure it's scrubbed. I didn't wait. I slipped through the side exit, feet barely touching the ground. Adrenaline turns you 17 again. I broke line of sight, ducked between server stacks, and made for the lower garage. Gunfire barked, sparks kicked from metal pipes overhead. I dove behind a crate, slid across concrete, pain blooming in my shoulder, but I didn't stop. I reached the exit, slammed the emergency bar. Alarms screamed, cutscene. My car was gone, replaced by a dull gray SUV. Windows blacked out. Trap. I sprinted down the fence line, cut through brush, and emerged onto the service road where an old Chevy truck sat idling. A figure leaned against it, cigarette glowing. Walter. I told you not to dig, he muttered, flicking ash. They know I'm in. They've been watching. He's not dead. He didn't ask who. Where's the rest of the footage? I demanded. He pulled out a small envelope, tossed it to me. Inside, still photos. Caleb, training, combat gear. One of them dated 2007, another 2010. I looked up. You had this the whole time? He nodded. I signed the same things you did. Then why keep them? Because I hoped I was wrong. You're not, I said. I climbed into the truck, started the engine. They're making ghosts. That's what Perseus was about. He looked at me, dead serious. Ghosts don't get funerals. They get forgotten. I drove off. Cut to interior. Back at my house, I locked every door, plugged the drive into an air-gapped laptop, pulled the raw data. One more file. Just audio. I clicked play. It was Caleb's voice. Unfiltered. If this gets out, they'll bury me for real. But you need to know, Dad, this wasn't war. It was ownership. They don't want soldiers anymore. They want weapons they can deny. The feed went dead. Behind me, a floorboard creaked. You weren't supposed to find this, but now, they'll come for you. The floorboard behind me groaned again. I spun fast, gun raised, heart pumping like it wanted out of my chest. Nothing there, just shadows bending wrong in the dim light, the kind of shadows that feel intentional. I whispered to myself, fear sharpens the edges. A line Caleb used to say during training drills. Hearing it now felt like someone twisting a knife. I grabbed the drive, the keys, and moved. No packing, no second thoughts. You don't delay when the past starts knocking on your doors. Cut scene. The mountain road toward Avery Woods was narrow and slick. Pine needles covered the asphalt like a carpet meant to hide something ugly underneath. Walter's intel pointed me here, an off-book facility run by Argus Protocol, a private contractor pretending to be patriotic. My headlights cut through fog thick enough to choke on. A rusty gate appeared out of nowhere. No guards. Just a keypad beside a reinforced fence. I typed an old clearance code from my intel years. Outdated, invalid. Then I typed something else. Caleb's last 4 from his service number. The gate buzzed. Opened. My stomach dropped. No soldier ever truly disappears, I murmured. Someone always keeps the door cracked. I drove in. Cut scene. The compound was a cluster of steel buildings half buried into the hillside. No logos, no numbers, no humanity. I killed the headlights and stepped out. Cold air slapped my face. Somewhere far off, a generator hummed like a warning. I followed the sound of movement, rhythmic, controlled, training patterns. My boots crunched gravel. As I neared the main structure, a faint glow leaked through a slit window. I peeked inside. 6 figures, running drills. Silent, perfect synchronization. No insignias. No hesitation. No emotion. Then my breath caught. Caleb was one of them. Older, harder, shoulders broader, eyes sharper. A decade stolen, reshaped, weaponized. He wasn't looking at the others. He stared straight ahead. unblinking, like someone programmed intent into his bones. I whispered, "My God, what did they do to you?" A hand clamped over my mouth. I grabbed the wrist, twisted, dropped low, muscle memory doing the thinking. The man hit the ground with a thud. Not dead, but dazed. I dragged him into the shadows and disarmed him, a shock baton and a biometric keycard. He muttered, "You're not supposed to be here." "No kidding." I pressed the baton to his ribs. "What unit is this?" "They don't have units," he hissed. "They are the unit." "Who's running it?" His silence told me enough. Fear. Real fear. Cutscene. Inside the training hall, alarms suddenly blared. Red lights washed the concrete in pulses. Caleb's head snapped toward the window. His entire body stiffened. The other men mirrored him like puppets sharing one brain. Then they moved, fast, toward the door. I ran. Cutscene. I hit the back stairwell, sprinting. Down metallic steps, 2 at a time. The whole building shook from heavy boots above me. Something mechanical powered up. Doors locking, systems sealing. I reached the basement corridor. Long, narrow, fluorescent lights flickering. The smell of metal and disinfectant. A door labeled Archive sat at the end. I swiped the stolen keycard. Green light. The door clicked. I slipped inside. Rows of filing cabinets, steel lockers, servers humming under dim emergency lights. I went straight to the secure terminal, typed Perseus. Denied. Typed K-47, the designation Walter hinted at. The screen blinked, opened, a file loaded, subject reassignment log, classified. My eyes scanned fast. Subject K-47, Hensley Caleb J. Status active operative conditioning, successful cognitive override, stabilized memory retention, suppressed handler. Authorization G. Hensley, my name, my authorization, my betrayal. My hands shook. I whispered, "I did this to him." A noise behind me, metal clanging. I turned. A silhouette stood in the doorway. Broad stance, tactical suit, face in shadow. Not a guard, not a random soldier. Caleb. He stepped inside, silent, focused, deadly, but his eyes flickered with something human, something trying to break through. "Caleb," I breathed. "It's me." He didn't blink, didn't lower the weapon in his hand, didn't recognize me. His voice was low, flat, conditioned. "You shouldn't be here." The lights cut out. Darkness swallowed the room whole. A whisper filled the black. "He wasn't made to remember you." The lights snapped back on. My vision blurred. Caleb still stood in the doorway, gun raised, gaze hollow. His frame tense, breathing shallow, like a machine waiting for input. Then the whisper again. "He wasn't made to remember you." It came from behind me. A woman, calm, surgical. She stepped out from the shadows, clipboard in hand, not even flinching as Caleb aimed at both of us. "Elena Vargas," she said smoothly, "behavioral architect. Or, in your case, the person who rewired your son." I didn't lower my gun. She didn't blink. "You've got 10 seconds to explain." She tilted her head. "You're not here to stop this. You're here to wake him up. That was always the contingency." "What the hell are you talking about?" He was conditioned, deep-level memory suppression, anchored by an emotional firewall, but the structure, it's failing, because he heard your voice. I looked at Caleb. He hadn't moved. "You broke him." "No, you did." Elena stepped closer, slow, like she was approaching a bomb. "You gave them permission. They built the wall. I just painted it." My voice cracked. "How do I undo it?" She dropped the clipboard. "You don't, but he might." I turned to Caleb. "Son, it's me." His mouth twitched, just slightly. I took a step forward. "Fishing trips. You hated worms. You used to fake stomach aches to get out of school. You broke your wrist jumping from the garage roof, remember?" No reaction. I kept going. "Your mom, she used to tell you, you're not a soldier, you're a fire. You hated it, said it sounded dumb." Caleb blinked. His grip on the gun shifted. He whispered, "Garage." I took one more step. "You're not a ghost. You're not their weapon. You're my son." Then, a scream tore through the intercom. "Unit breach in Sector C. Subject K-47 off protocol. Engage lockdown." Caleb's eyes snapped wide. He looked at me, then at Elena. Then, he dropped the gun, fell to his knees. Elena moved fast, pulled a small syringe from her jacket, jammed it into Caleb's neck. I lunged. Too late. He collapsed, limp. I shoved her hard. "What the hell did you do?" She coughed, stood. Stabilizer, not a kill shot. I want him to wake up just as much as you do, but if they catch him mid-fracture, they'll terminate. Cut scene. I dragged Caleb through the emergency hatch Elena opened in the sublevel wall. It led to a ventilation corridor, tight, dark, and dripping with condensation. Pipes hissed overhead. We moved fast. Elena guided. I carried. Every few feet, Caleb twitched, muscles spasming. He mumbled fragments. Dad. Code red. Garage roof. I gritted my teeth. Stay with me, kid. Elena turned back. We have 6 minutes before extraction teams flood this route. We need a way to wipe his tag, I said. She hesitated. There's one. Place. Remote. Off-grid. A broadcast blind spot built for deep recon evac. It's not on the Argus map. Then take us there. Cut scene. 3 hours later, a rusted comms tower on a ridge outside Asheville. Fog covered everything. Pines loomed like sentries. The air tasted like copper and frost. Caleb sat against a rusted fuel drum. Awake. Quiet. Jaw clenched. I crouched beside him. How much do you remember? He didn't answer at first. Then, you have a scar on your right thumb from sharpening a blade too fast. I nodded. He looked down. I don't know who I am, but I remember fear. I remember pain, orders that didn't make sense, and a voice that didn't match the words. I swallowed. Yours? He looked at me. No, the one in charge. A radio pinged on Elena's belt. She froze, listened, then turned to me. We have company. I grabbed my gun. Elena whispered, 4 agents, no insignia. Argus sends ghosts after ghosts. I pulled Caleb to his feet. He looked at me. Eyes sharper now, focused. What's the plan? I stared at him. Survive. Then burn them down. We took cover behind the tower's base. Fog thickening. First shot cracked through the trees. Metal screamed. Caleb moved first. Clean. Surgical. No hesitation. He dropped one, disarmed another. I took the third. Blood on frost. Boots thudding. Radio static rising. Then silence. Elena checked her pulse. We need to wipe his signal now. She opened a metal case, revealing a device that looked like a pacemaker fused with a grenade. This will kill the tracker, she said, but it'll hurt. Caleb nodded. Do it. She pressed it to his neck. He winced. Metal clicked. A hiss. A deep pulse echoed through the woods. Then quiet. She looked at me. It's done. He's off grid. I exhaled. Caleb stood, jaw tight. Now we take it back. I stepped beside him. You don't remember me yet, but you remember how to fight. He smirked just barely. Let's start there. I know your voice, but I don't know who the hell you are. The compound burned behind us. Orange flames climbing the trees. Metal twisted and screamed. No sirens. No response. Just the kind of fire no one reports. Caleb stood beside me. Ash in his hair. Smoke in his eyes. He didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Didn't look back. Some pain teaches you to forget. Other pain teaches you to aim. I handed him the last file Elena pulled. Black seal, red tab. Final designation, Project Perseus. Termination protocol. Inside, a list of other names. Not just his. Not just mine. Dozens. All labeled subjects with living kin authorization. It wasn't just about control, I said. It was legacy. Ownership passed from father to son. Caleb opened the file, saw the names, read one out loud. Kendall. I nodded. Your best friend. He disappeared in 04. They said desertion. His jaw tightened. They lied to all of us. That's what systems do best. Not with bullets, with paper. Cutscene. We relocated to a cabin in Tennessee, tucked behind fog-thick woods and a broken radio tower. Elena kept watch, off-grid. No cell, no signal, no mistakes. Caleb worked in silence most days, cleaning weapons. Writing notes he never showed me. Some nights he'd wake in cold sweats, shaking. Eyes blank. Trauma doesn't end. It just waits. You ever wonder why they picked you? I asked once. He didn't look up. Because I was already trained to obey. I said nothing. Sometimes truth sounds like defeat. Cut scene. A month passed. Then 2. We gathered intel. Tracked names. Patterns. Signals bouncing off dead satellites and waterlogged stations. Argus was bleeding, but not dead. I knew they'd come again. They always do. You can bury a lie, but someone always hears the heartbeat under the dirt. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps on the cabin door, like the first time, but not from a stranger. Caleb opened it. The man on the porch looked older, lined face, limp in his step, but his voice, sharp as razors. "You Gabriel Hensley?" he asked. "I am." He handed me a small package, plain wrapping, no return. Then he said, "You're not the only one they burned," and walked away. I opened it after he left. Inside, a drive, a single label etched in metal. Redemption. I didn't plug it in right away. We watched the fire that night from the ridgeline. Another facility, another secret scorched. Caleb broke the silence. "You think they'll stop?" "No." "You think we'll win?" "Probably not." He looked at me, something soft in his eyes for the first time since we found each other again. "But we fight anyway." "Always." He nodded. "You raised a soldier." I looked at him. "No," I said. "They tried to, but I raised a man." Cutscene. Later that night, I listened to the final audio log Caleb had left on the encrypted drive from months ago. I never played it, until now. If you find this, I'm either dead or remembering. I hope it's the latter. And if it is, Dad, I forgive you, because I know what they do to men like us. We survive too long, we carry too much. But sometimes, surviving is the rebellion. I closed the laptop, went outside. Fog rolled low over the trees. Caleb stood at the edge of the woods, rifle slung low, gaze fixed on the horizon, waiting. I joined him. "We ready?" he asked. I nodded. "To what end?" he asked. I exhaled. "To a future we can't escape. But maybe, just maybe, we can write it differently. You raised a soldier. Now live with what that means."